On day 5, we're gonna be drawing. Drawing the characters can be one of the easiest and one of the most enjoyable part of the course. If kept simple. We'll do everything in digital in this course, but if you prefer to have a version of this lesson in traditional drawing, we can add it later. So leave us a comment, like the video, and if the video reaches enough likes, you can have a dedicated traditional study of how to draw characters. We'll continue to focus on our 4 main characters by drawing their heads and their bodies, starting with the heads. We choose the 3/4 profile because it adds more potential. The most important part when you start drawing a head is the head shape. Now, you want to focus on the general shape of the head rather than the specific feature. You don't know what to start. Start with the angle between the arcade and the nose. Here you have the general proportion of the head already defined. You can refine it later. It to be as light as possible in the early stages. Start with the orbits, the arch of the nose, placing the lips, finally chin. And you can add the mastoid, the back of the head, and the neck. Went a bit too far for the neck here. And you can place clavicles, shoulder, to have a nice bust. And you can stop there for now. The head up to the shoulders will be just enough to characterize your character. No, if you have to draw anything in your book, if you think you can't draw composition, if you can't draw environment, that's fair enough. You know, composition is a little bit difficult and a little bit advanced. If you think you can draw the whole body, fair as well. But at least try to draw the heads of the main character, because it creates a lot more attachment when it comes to the public. Then you want to go for the eyes. We'll try to, for people who prefer traditional drawing, we'll try to not use layers here. We'll try to not make use of the zoom. Try to not make use of course, of digital tools that allow deformation. Try to make it as traditional as possible. So with a lot of detail here. It's really small, but we're gonna zoom it here afterwards. Just to show you a global placement of all the features. No. The ears, a little backward. A lot of space for the temples here. And that's how you want to start your character, you know. Large mass for the skull. And then design the face. Design the facial element as a mask. A mask you can remove and replace it. And you'll realize that every part, every feature of the face can be removed and reused for another character. Because that's what you want to do. You want to have skulls, and then you want to customize the skulls. So what you want to do in the first place is make use of these large shapes you want to design. skulls first. You know? Think about drawing lots of skulls in the beginning. If you've never drawn before, focus on skulls and focus on skull shapes, because that's the most important part when it comes to the shape design, the shape of the skull. For example, I drew them a little elongated. For now, I'm gonna try something more boxy, you know, rounder, maybe smaller, something you may consider childish, maybe. That would be suited for a child, you know, little nose, larger orbits, replace the smiling mouth, and a shorter neck. Now, when you're drawing, you want to be aware of your biases. For example, in my case, the bones, the muscles, the articulation are very apparent on my drawings. So if you want to do something softer, if I ever wanted to do something softer, I have to focus more. If I want to do a more curvaceous character, for example, I have to focus on showing more fat and more muscle than the traditional bones articulation I show. So be aware of your biases. It really helps when you're trying to create new design. So otherwise, if you can't identify your biases, it will be really difficult to create an original design for your new character, especially if you want to have something a little bit different like that. You know, if you tend to elongate your skull bottom to top or front to rear, you have to be aware of that too. Now, if we zoom this person, now let's redo that, but much bigger. So first the arcade, then the forehead. This first plane is the most important plane because it will allow you to define the impact of light on your character's face. Then once you get that, you'll trace all your parallel lines. You know, all these parallel lines. You know, just draw them like if there were tiles on the floor. Really, all parallel. And then you have the little inflection, the part for the anatomy part, in fact. When you start drawing eyes and nose, you don't want to start to focus on the globe, you know, on the eye itself, but rather start with the orbit, you know, and try to orientate the orbit in a direction. As the head rotates, there's a deformation. So then, same thing for the lips, you know, you have this parallel line here, you want to make use of all the parallel you can, you know, and think of them as parallel lines for now. You're gonna curve them later. You know, all that is parallel. Then you have the same thing here for the lips, the upper lid, just under the philtrum, the middle, and the back. Then same thing for your chin. You know, you can place all these points. You know, there will be very good landmarks for the head. You know, all these little dots. You can place them here, here, here. And it will make the task much more easy. So your head in the first draft will look a little bit squarey, a little bit boxy, but that's fine because it gives you landmarks, and that's what you want. You're gonna add complexity later. So if you finish that, so I got these lips here, got my chin, and then the mastery, and down to the back of the head. So here the skull is a little less defined. You really want to start with angles, with a lot of angles toward the beginning, because curves is it's a difficult topic. You know, it's a difficult matter to use in the very beginning. So, because curves are untrustworthy. You know, when you're drawing an angle, you know that's an angle. If I rounded it immediately, you have to ask yourself, okay, but how do I draw this curve? How do I know the angle is the proper angle? How do I know I have the same proportion? How will I keep the proportion? Have confidence in angles. Think in terms of angles, and that will be the same remark for bodies. If you want to draw hands as well, if you want to draw hands, and you never draw hands, start by drawing triangles, for example. Now I'm gonna place them here. And see, it's really basic. Because you don't have to be anatomically correct here, to a certain extent. You know, for example, you don't want to draw the eyes too big, for example. But then at the same time, when you see these eyes, they aren't exactly properly placed because I didn't use any reference to do that. So maybe if I imagine these eyes, you know, on a band here, there would be the inclination maybe in this drawing is incorrect. So that's the limit really of what you want to do here. You want to represent more than reproduce. So in your representation, you need a certain degree of anatomical accuracy, and that's it. You want just this degree. So you don't want too big of eyes, except if you have a more childlike subject, or if you have a specific species which has big eyes. You don't want it has to be deliberate every time. You know, for example, let's suppose this species have a very, very little nose or no nose at all. Okay, that's a humanoid species. They have no nose, so that's fine. But if you try to draw something that looks like a human, just like so, you want to be accurate according to the message you're trying to convey. The ear, purple head, it's a typical human head. You know, it's maybe some of you may consider it's a little bit more masculine, some of you may consider it's a little bit more feminine, some may consider it's a Caucasian head, you know, because there's this kind of appreciation linked to it. The fact that I've used a black background, for example, it may influence your perception, because, for example, if I change the background into a, for example, white background, no, it will change your perception, obviously here because you can see some light, but it changes your perception. But that's it, you know, that's just the subjective part. If you try to remain as objective as you can, you want to have a certain size for the eyes, certain size for the nose, certain size for the lips, same for the jaw, the hair, and when it comes to position and proportion, you define the standards with everything, like everything with your characters. Now let's try to compare four heads. So we have this model already. Now let's start back from zero. I'm gonna draw another head, maybe a more childlike head. So you start with the same basics. Now, the main difference between adult and child is that the size of the skull, size of the face will be less represented here. So we want to have something like that, you know. The back, the cranium, relative to the mandible will be bigger. So for example, I've got these kind of orbits, and you see I'm already cartoonizing a little bit because you need a certain degree of style in your drawings. You need a certain degree of symbolism in every drawing. Trying to make a rounder cranium for the child. It's already a little bit difficult because, as I said earlier, I have biases. For me, for example, I'm mainly drawing adult subjects, grown-ups. So drawing a child not that easy. So I have to use some artifacts like the round nose, for example, show that it's more childish. A rounder, shorter nose really helps. A rounder and shorter nose really helps. Bigger eyes, if you have eyes like this, helps as well. Very much so. If you have a little mouth, as well, little mouth, almost no chin. Now, that looks more like a clown than a child while I draw, but that's the spirit. If it looks childish, it will look more like a child. Larger irises as well. Really looks like a little monster, right? Less than a human child. But the thing is that, because if your concern now is to draw realistic head, or you think you can draw because you can draw realistic head, just think of it as it's not a problem, because you're not writing realistic characters anyway. Even if you're writing something that may look like so, if you're writing, for example, a murder mystery, and you have this this traditional opposition between a detective and criminals, you won't be able to write it realistically. Really, think about it. Think about the amount of knowledge you'll need just to write a detective. Think about the amount of knowledge you'll need just to write the criminal. And then there's the forensics section. There's the rest of the world building. The urbanism, the government's or administration knowledge. Because you have to write a real city as well, because it's an urban novel generally, crime novels. So think about realism to the extent of your capabilities every time. Now we've got this little nose here. And that's supposed to represent a child. But the thing is, you don't have only the imagery to use that. You can make use of, the dialogue, for example. Or if it's a child's point of view, you'll make use of the descriptions. And in the same manner, if you can compose a little bit of music, give this child a tune. A child's tune. Just give her words, All of that, makes it more childish. You can give it very, very large hat, and maybe a hat that looks like an animal, because that's recognized, that's symbolically a childish thing to wear. So if you can add, and we're gonna do accessories later, but just let's start with something very, very simple to add to your drawings, which is hat. By the way, if you're looking for easy accessories to implement, very, very efficient accessories, hat is always the best headgear, certain kind of hairstyle as well. Everything that modifies the shape of the head is always the best kind of accessories you can look for. After that, you got weapons, but weapons are second on the list, really. The headpiece is always the thing that will make that's the most effective thing, really. Let's suppose that's a frog head. What the hell? Yeah. Okay, that's a frog head, and the hat is just wrapping around the whole body, because, well, it's not really a hat. In fact, it's a pajama. So you have this frog, this big frog pajama. If you want to, if you want to not make it really cute because it's not really cute here, you can add some elements of, angst in it. So you create some form of dissonance, which creates some form of interest. And then you have some simple character design here. You have your face and you have your accessory. So that's how you'll make a character head. In a really easy method. Now, let's get to the bodies. I'm not using references for this course because I have some clear body types that I use very often. But if you're starting, really definitely use reference. That's the best way to start. Just picking a couple of very good photos and having some very nice gesture, some very good gestural drawing. It's always the best training when you're starting. So if you want to start and you don't know where to start, just focus on free-form association, really, because you're not going to copy what you have in front of you. You're going to modify it a lot. So pick four models, pick four references of people that you really enjoy visually, and try to pick something that's just really interesting. Also, because it's maybe the most important part, to have not just the body proportion, but also the movement. For now, for example, I'm just almost exclusively focusing on gesture. No, I'm not really making use much of the proper proportion, when I'm drawing while I'm drawing right now. Just really focused on what could happen if I was animating this. And I really want to invite you to think of it this way. Think of drawing as something that will be animated one day. Because if you're able later to animate that, you'll really know how to draw. So if you want to train yourself in 2D animation, there'll probably be a little course on that later. But for now, let's go for how to draw your 4 main characters with 4 different body types and 4 different aspects. So you can really easily see that we have different proportions here. The example purple, for example, will be, I think, the best representation of that. Because I'm gonna start to really break the humanoid shape here. And really try to have a character, if you can, that's really a little bit different from the other. Really physically different. It can be the antagonist, the main antagonist, so the menace or the threat, or it can be just your protagonist, really, or even your support. So how do you make them different? How do you make any character different, really? You may want to just remove something that's considered essential. Let's suppose I'm not adding any arms to purple. That's an important part of the anatomy. So if a character has no arms, well, that's something missing. If the character has no hair as well, for example, here red has no hair. But let's suppose I'm adding a little cool chef here. No, can't see it anymore. So it doesn't look like there's something missing. If we get back to purple and give her arms, give her these sort of arms. They're long, but at the same time, they're crossed. This character, purple, crosses her arms. You may be thinking this character is because I've drawn the lower part of the body in this manner. You may think that this character is maybe wearing a dress, just like here. But maybe it's not a dress. Maybe it's really a part of her body. Maybe it's just that the character does not need to have legs to move. Maybe the character is floating, or maybe the character is gliding. And that's an essential part of character design, movement, but it's very, very often forgotten. Because maybe we don't attach that much importance to movement, especially because we're drawing fixed images here. Or in the case of a book, because we're writing, we're not really drawing some, not really imagining them. But think really movement first. Every time you draw a character, think about what will define the next action, because the next action is that. So if I take back one of these characters now, if I get back to it, we restart and just focus onto one of them. It's because we got red. So start with the head, rhythm of the neck, rhythm of the torso. And you'll learn to adapt your proportion, but for now, no, let's think of the thorax as this egg. Think of the clavicle. Get to the scapula. And from there, you can just place the rest now. Abdomen, iliac bone. And then I'm gonna think of the legs just this way. No, you want to represent the legs and the arms, so all the limbs, but it applies to the whole body as well. We'll see that later. But for now, let's focus on just the leg. You want to apply this outer, inner rhythm to everything you're drawing. But now, for example, the legs will be drawn like so. You can imagine that the leg is like that. It's a little bit twisted here, but it's the gesture only. And the other leg, like so, outer, inner. And the other way around if you prefer. So same thing for the arms. Outer, inner. Outer, inner. Now the character may be making some form of a, reference. I don't know how high the skirt should be, but the character is taking a little pose here. And you want to think about these signature poses every time you create a character, because that's an essential quirk. Other than the hair, because you can draw a headset here, or even hair really. But think also about the signature pose, because that's the other physical quirk to be easily visible. Now we got this character, and that was the first point. The first point really always is gesture, because gesture will make the quirks visible. The second point, and think really about only these two things when you're creating bodies. You want to create gesture, and you want to create diversity. So we have a first slender, elongated character. So to create diversity, we'll need a little one. So start with something that's just half of it, and a little bit squarier, a little bit thicker. So smaller and thicker. Now, I'm gonna start with a big head. And it's ridiculously big, but that's, that's what didactic is. It's supposed to be clear, not to be subtle. So same thing. Rhythm of the neck. The torso. The abdomen. The iliac. Then I'm gonna have this very thick and short leg. So now here it's the same principle but applied differently, We have the outer, inner, outer, inner, and so on. Now we're gonna draw the arms the same way as well. Outer or inner, depending on the inclination, because here it's more the inside of the arm because it's rotating, and outer, and again inner. Thing here, outer, inner, outer, and you see the last section here is the end, you know. And for representing your hand in the beginning, draw these little triangles. No, same thing here. You want to be really clear, you know, because you don't need that much details really if you're starting to draw. You just want to be clear. Draw these little arms. And here you have already a relationship that's forming between what could be the protagonist and the antagonist. No, here, just with this picture, you're showing the desire of the protagonist to mimic the antagonist. You have this figure, which is considered to be desirable by the protagonist. The desire is represented by this gesture, the will to go this way, which is the way of the antagonist. And this almost, you know, loss of balance at the leg level, you know, the protagonist is precipitating herself in the direction of the antagonist. There's this clear will to imitate, to be like this other person, which is depicting clear sign of desirability, again, according to the protagonist's perspective. No, that's what the protagonists estimate. No, it's what the protagonist think is something desirable to be. So that's how also you create a great relationship between your protagonist and your antagonist, just with a picture. And you know, that picture, it could be just a picture of the book. We're gonna cover book covers later, but imagine it this way. That part, no, the red part is the front of the book. No, we got her here. And that part is the back of the book. You got the little blue one running after her ideal image. And imagine a book that's closing on those two characters. That's a great way to create an attachment between the public and the protagonist and the antagonist, and you really have a really organic, synergic demarche here. Let's finish them though with the head. So we're gonna get back to this little child's head we had later with this little frog pajama. So you got the big eyes, little pug nose, you know, and the froggy style thing around. Not gonna draw the whole pajama because it will cover some details that you'll need. But no, we already have these red eyes on the top of the frog pajama. Here, these eyes are not the character's eyes, but they represent what the character is thinking about. They're the mental of this is the mental of the character. The same thing for here. No, you can draw this character with these. I'm gonna zoom for it here because I want you to see the details. That's not there. We want to draw the character's face in a very relaxed manner, since you know the protagonist is panicking. You know, the protagonist is trying to reach the antagonist as fast as possible. there's a state of constant agitation in what she does. So to create a great opposition between the protagonist and the antagonist, you want to make the antagonist as calm as possible. You know, that's really a matter of willing to create something surprising versus something known. Because let's suppose we have a protagonist like so. I really like to show you something more detailed. So let's restart from here. We want to have as much space as possible to draw the character's face, and we'll go for something very detailed. So we want to draw some closed eyes, because you know you can show that the character is calmer if her eyes are closed, because if your eyes are closed, you estimate that there's no danger around you. So I'm gonna draw these beautiful closed eyes here. Gonna make her sort of a bird-like face here. Very small, very pretty face, you know, for the antagonist, which is constantly alluding to the protagonist. Now, if you want to be a little more subtle, you shouldn't overemphasize the fact that the antagonist looks more mature as opposed to the protagonist. If you want to be more subtle, you want to display the fact that both of them are petulant, both of them are still childish, but the antagonist can display her adulthood better than the protagonist. And you know, that's the difference between the on-the-nose approach and just what you'll be doing here. Because now you have a much more attractive antagonist. No, just with this, just with these closed eyes, this resting mouth, you know, could make it a little more voluptuous if you want, but not too much, because it should still look a little childish, because both of them are pursuing something that's probably not worth pursuing anyway. So you have this opposition, you know, between this body here, clear opposition between this body and this body, clear opposition between this gesture and this gesture, and clear opposition between this head and this head. And that's it. You know, you've created a relationship. You put two bodies side by side, you put two faces side by side, and two movements side by side, and that's it. And really, I think that's an idea you could keep for the cover, or if you don't want to put that on the cover, you can put it in the very middle of your book. You know, the two pages in the very middle of your book. You put just a picture, a drawing, or a painting of the antagonist and the protagonist side by side. That will just really reinforce the opposition and create more attachment between these two characters and the public. So that's the part on drawing characters. We'll refine that later.